Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I'm Jessica, a 34-year-old marketing manager in a thriving city. After ending a long-term relationship, I decided to get back into dating. Although a bit overweight, I'm confident in my looks and have no trouble finding dates. Being open-minded, I didn't hesitate when a charming Latin American man named Ricardo messaged me on a dating app last November. Ricardo claimed to be a 32-year-old architect visiting on a tourist visa but hoping to extend his stay. Despite my disclaimer that I couldn't assist with his immigration status, we hit it off instantly. He seemed intelligent, caring, and we shared many interests. Our chemistry was electric, and after 4 incredible dates, I thought I'd met my perfect match. However, things took an unexpected turn one evening when Ricardo casually proposed that I become his sugar mama. Bewildered, I assumed he was joking, but he insisted it was a serious request. Furious and humiliated, I unleashed a torrent of criticism which only provoked further insults from him without any apology. Heartbroken, I confided in my closest friends, Samantha and Lily. Samantha, a tech-savvy investigator, uncovered multiple social media accounts with varying names and images, all appearing to belong to Ricardo. Suspiciously, one account featured him tagging an employer, suggesting he was working illegally. Lily, a police officer specializing in immigration cases, looked into Ricardo's file and made a startling discovery. He was married with a daughter back home. Enraged, we launched a full-scale assault. Samantha created group chats with Ricardo's family and friends, sharing screenshots exposing his infidelity and exploitation attempts. As they blocked her, she added more contacts relentlessly. I obtained his sister's number and Lily sent her the damning evidence too. Ricardo soon sent me a nasty message claiming he'd been joking about the sugar mama proposal and didn't need to sell himself. I ignored his pathetic excuses. Next, I filed an online immigration report detailing Ricardo's illegal employment, providing his personal information, photos, and chat logs as proof. Typically, these reports languish for months, but Lily expedited the process. Within 2 days, officers paid an unexpected visit to Ricardo's residence, catching him with a phone number registered to a local resident, a direct link to his undocumented employment. He received a formal caution for attempting to scam me, a no-contact order, and a likely multi-year ban from re-entering the country due to his actions. His roommates face similar warnings, and his employer is under investigation for large-scale illegal hiring practices, facing substantial fines or potential jail time. While Ricardo avoided immediate deportation due to the associated costs and his imminent visa expiration, any future attempt to contact me will result in his removal from the country. More importantly, he must now face the consequences of his deceit, an angry wife aware of his indiscretions, and the collective shame from his exposed double life. I hope this experience serves as a cautionary tale for romance scammers. You never know when your web of lies might unravel, leaving you to confront the harsh realities you've created for yourself and those you've wronged. The next one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my current house for over 15 years now and never had any issues with neighbors or feeling unsafe in the area. That was until about 6 months ago when I noticed a few weird things happening around my property. The first thing I noticed was a tiny blink of red light coming from my neighbor's second-floor window at night. It seemed odd, but I brushed it off as maybe a smoke detector or something simple like that. But over the next couple weeks, I noticed more and more little red blinking lights pop up. Not just in his house, but he had also seemed to mount cameras on the telephone pole and streetlights outside my property. I tried to ignore it at first, not wanting to jump to conclusions or cause issues without being sure what was happening, but it was hard to ignore over 20 little red lights pointed at my house from all directions at night. The final straw was when I was sitting in my living room one evening and noticed a red blinking light coming from my backyard tree. I went outside with a flashlight and climbed up the tree to inspect. Sure enough, my creeper neighbor had literally put a surveillance camera smack dab in the middle of my tree, angled down at my backyard and right into my living room and kitchen windows. At this point, I'd had enough. I didn't know what this guy's deal was, but it was more than a little unsettling having over 20 cameras pointed at my house from all angles, including one secretly installed in my own tree. The next day, I went over and knocked on his door, ready to politely but firmly ask him to remove the cameras. A scrawny, squirrely-looking man answered the door. He seemed nervous, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting a lot. "Hello, I'm your neighbor from across the street. I wanted to talk to you about the cameras you've installed around your property. I couldn't help but notice quite a few of them are pointed directly at my house," I said. Cameras? What cameras? I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered unconvincingly. "There are over 20 cameras I've counted, several of which are on the telephone pole and streetlights across from my property." One is even hidden in the tree in my backyard, I replied. Those aren't cameras, they're just, security lights. Motion sensor lights, he claimed. I crossed my arms and gave him a stern look. With all due respect, I know the difference between security lights and surveillance cameras. I'd appreciate it if you removed the cameras pointed at my property. Realizing the jig was up, he finally confessed. All right, they're cameras. But I'm not doing anything bad, just making sure everyone is safe in the neighborhood. I highly doubted his intentions were merely to keep the neighborhood safe, but I held my tongue. Regardless, I consider it a violation of privacy, and I ask again that you please remove any cameras pointed at my home. He became defensive and refused, saying it was his right to install surveillance on his own property. I left without further argument, seeing it was pointless to debate with someone who clearly had some issues. After reaching out to a lawyer friend, I discovered that while he was right about installing cameras on his own property, placing them on public poles and fixtures was likely illegal. And the camera in my tree was absolutely an unlawful invasion of privacy. I wrote up a formal cease and desist letter with the help of my lawyer friend, citing the specific cameras that were illegal and demanding their immediate removal, or else I would be forced to take legal action. A week went by and I saw no change. I was just about ready to file a lawsuit when late one night I heard a shuffling outside. I peeked out the window and saw my creepy neighbor scurrying around with a ladder, taking down the cameras from the streetlights and telephone pole. Over the next few days, the red blinking lights disappeared one by one. It seemed the legal threat in the cease and desist letter had done the trick. A week later, almost all the cameras surrounding my property were gone. The tree camera remained though, so I ended up calling the police to file a report about unlawful surveillance. After an officer came and inspected the camera, I never saw the little red light in my tree again. While the ordeal left me feeling violated and disgusted by my neighbor's behavior, I'm relieved to have my privacy back again. I just hope the legal scare was enough to prevent my peeping neighbor from pulling something like this again. But at least now I know I have options if I ever notice those disturbing red blinking lights pointed my way. The next one is a petty revenge story. When I list something on FB Marketplace, I do it with the intention of selling it basically right away. What does this mean? It means my price is low, sometimes too low, and firm. I don't budge on price, but that has never mattered. They always buy it at full price anyway. I absolutely hate getting 50 "is it still available" messages. When I get one of those, I just delete and ignore. A few days ago I was selling a set of new takeoff tires / wheels. MSRP was in the $2,500 range. Used prices were in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. I listed these at $1,000. Within an hour I had probably 20 messages about them. My response is always the same. The price is the price. I will not hold them. First come, first serve. One of the guys who messaged me offered $250. These are a slow sell at $2,000, but a near instant sell at $1,000. There is no world where $250 was an appropriate offer. So I told him that. My word-for-word, punctuation-for-punctuation response to his offer was, no. But that didn't stop him. He justified his offer by sending several listings showing other tires, etc., so I blocked him and moved on. Fast forward 10 minutes, and I get another message from a different FB account, with the same offer. This guy was now using a second FB account. So I blocked this second account, and then he did it with a third account. I was done at this point. Clearly I couldn't win by just blocking and moving on. This guy was relentless. His strategy was to literally annoy the living crap out of you until you just said yes. And blocking his accounts wouldn't work. Who knows how many accounts this guy had. And so I did what any other sane person would do and accepted his $250 offer. I told him I would take his $250 offer, but that he would have to meet me later that night, as I was currently busy. He said that he was about a 2-hour drive from me and asked to meet halfway. I said no. He was eager to make a quick buck off of me, so agreed to drive to me. There is a street in our town that has a few pubs on it. 3 of these pubs are within about a half mile of each other, kind of set up so you park on the street and walk between them, and these pubs are usually busy by 11 p.m. By busy, I mean there is 0 parking anywhere. You usually have to park at least a half mile away and walk to the pub. And so I did what any sane person would do and set the meet for 11 p.m. at one of these local pubs. I sent him a message at around 10:45 p.m. and asked him to meet me in the pub, and we could walk over to my truck and grab the wheels' tires. He messages me at 11 p.m. and told me he was out front. There is no way to park out front without blocking the entire street, and traffic is usually heavy at 11 p.m., meaning he couldn't just wait out front. He would have to move. So again, I did what any sane person would do, and waited until about 10 minutes after 11 p.m. to message back. In that 10 minutes, I received no less than 20 messages from him. These messages painted an amazing picture as he grew more and more frustrated, as he sent screenshots of his location, asking if he was in the right place, as he kept telling me he would drive down the block and circle back. You get the point. 10 minutes later, I sent a simple, "Sorry about that. Didn't see your message. I'm at the bar in XYZ pub. Just park and come in. I'll grab you a beer." He accepted the offer, parked what I assume was 1-2 mile plus away, and walked to the pub. 10 more minutes of me not responding, and 20 plus messages later, I sent a simple, "Sorry about that, didn't see your message. I walked down to PDQ pub, probably 500 yards away, thinking you may be there. Meet me down here?" Fast forward until right around midnight. I had made this man drive 2 hours one way, walk at least 2 miles, go into all 3 pubs, and curse me every way to Sunday. And he was still 2 hours from home, so I did what any sane person would do and turned off FB notifications and went to bed. Oh, and the wheels and tires sold earlier that day for exactly $1,000. The next one is a malicious compliance story. The city I live in has extremely inflated vehicle values compared to the surrounding areas. If you buy the same car from a neighboring state, you can often save $3,000. $4,000 without really trying. When I buy a new vehicle, which happens every 3-4 years, I always look in the surrounding states to compare pricing. This story happened about 5 years ago, and the malicious compliance is still ongoing to this day. I was shopping for a new car, brand new, and found one that matched my specs about 12 hours away in a neighboring state. It was priced about $5,000 below comps. After looking up flights, there was a one-way direct flight that took me to their local airport for around $175, plus the gas to drive back. I was looking at a total of maybe $275 to save $5,000. Absolutely worth it in this situation. I reached out to the dealership, negotiated a bit, and agreed on a price. I let them know that I would be flying in to pick up the car and offered to pay in full in advance of the flight. They told me that all they needed was a $1,000 deposit and that the car was considered mine. We signed a contract and I paid the deposit. And then I booked the flight. For 3 days from then. First sign of things gone awry. When I showed up at the airport, the dealership was supposed to pick me up. This had been arranged in advance. A quick phone call later and I grabbed an Uber to take me the 20 miles to the dealership with the promise of them covering that cost. No big deal either way. Second sign of things gone awry. When I showed up at the dealership, the salesman I had been speaking with asked me if I wanted to walk the lot with him to look at a few cars. Yes, cars, plural. Questioning what he meant by that, we walked into the lot to see these cars that he was talking about. Were these some special type of gold inlaid, full self-driving, full self-flying, Amaze mobiles? No, they were not. When I point blank asked to see the car that I was buying, the one with VIN XYZ listed in the signed contract with a deposit on it, I was told it was no longer available. The salesman offered to show me similar cars, which would have been fine were we able to come to similar terms on pricing, but all of these cars outrageously priced. Think $2,000 over MSRP instead of $5,000 under MSRP. Important note for later, there was never a mention, or any paperwork, signage, etc., of any incentives for giving 5-star reviews. Fast forward 2-3 hours. I am now convinced this dealership never had this specific car on the lot, and that this was 100% a bait and switch gone wrong. The dealership was unwilling to sell me a similar vehicle at a similar price to our negotiated one. We were over $5,000 apart, and were unwilling to pay the flight costs for this bait and switch scenario. A heated discussion ensued between myself and the GM, where he told me to go ahead and leave a bad review, but that I wasn't getting any free money from him. I took an Uber to a nearby hotel and booked a flight back home for the next day. Total cost? Around $750. Cue malicious compliance. This dealership had an average Google rating of right around 4.5 stars and around 400 total reviews. Pretty solid for a dealership. That night, while I was sitting in the hotel room, I had some time to burn. I spent a couple of hours creating new email accounts just so that I could leave multiple reviews for this dealership. All said and done, I had left around 21-star reviews over the course of that night and then sort of stopped caring about the reviews. At this point, my focus shifted to recovering my lost travel expenses. A few days after getting back, I sent the dealership a demand letter for $750, which they promptly ignored. Since we had done the original contract, with the deposit, in both states, I was allowed to file a small claims suit in my state, which I did. The dealership never showed up to court, and I received a default judgment for $750. I did collect that, by the way. It took a few certified letters, a few phone calls, and about a year, but I did get a check for $750. As you can imagine, I was still not a happy camper. What they had done was wrong on so many levels. All of my friends knew the story of how I was bait and switched, and the fact that I flew to the dealership on a one-way ticket only made it that much worse. They had all left a bad review or two, but nothing more than a normal mad customer. Cue malicious compliance long term. I don't know how it started or how it ended up lasting as long as it has, but at some point I had some time on my hands and left a bad review for this dealership. Just one, not two, not three, one. In doing so, I noticed that all of the reviews I had left right after leaving the dealership were gone, probably taken down for being fake or because I had left so many at the same time and the dealership reported them. I wanted to make sure this dealership wouldn't do this to someone else. So the next day, I checked to make sure that one bad review I had just left was still there. And since I was thinking about it, I went ahead and created another account and left another 1-star review. Fast forward 2-3 years, it has now become a habit. Every time I have a few minutes to spare, I create a new account and leave a 1-star review for this dealership. Their current rating, 1.9 stars with nearly 5K total reviews. I am personally responsible for at least half of those reviews. When you open the dealer's website, one of the large banners that flashes across the screen advertises $50 for a 5-star review. Something about showing the review to your salesman to get a $50 Visa gift card. It has been this way since about a year after this bait and switch occurred, right around the time the 1-star reviews began to accumulate. Assuming I am responsible for half of their reviews, and the fact that the dealership only has 5K total reviews, they have paid $50 per review for at least 1,000 reviews, likely more than that, meaning they have implemented a policy to pay for reviews, have spent $5,000 doing so, and have still seen their average rating drop consistently since telling me to go ahead and leave a bad review. Edited to add, yes, I got my $1,000 deposit back. I paid with a CC and it was refunded without issue. I couldn't sue for time spent or force the contract to be honored because I sued in small claims court. Time spent not allowable, and contract too high of a value for small claims. And yes, the case was 100% winnable if I were to have sued to force the contract to be honored. But legal fees, I would have needed to hire an attorney, and the additional time spent meant this was just not worth pursuing. And finally, no. I will not provide the name of the dealership. I know that some companies sue people who leave reviews. I am not willing to risk that, so will continue to remain anonymous and allow the dealership to do the same. I did report their review practice, along with screenshots showing that they are offering payment for 5-star reviews to Google, etc. If anything happens, I'll update this post, though I would expect that may take months, years. The next one is an entitled People story. This happened last night. I work security at a bar, mainly checking IDs and making sure the place doesn't get too rowdy, which it usually doesn't. Last night, a group of mostly British people came in around 11:30, and they stayed until close, 2 a.m. We have a ping pong table, and the group spent most of their time playing on it. The night continued as normal. I closed the back areas of the bar at 1 and announced last call 30 minutes later. 2 a.m. rolls around, and the first issue comes up. I turn off the music in the middle of a song which the group expresses disappointment in, even if it was a Nickelback song. Characters me, PPG, Ping Pong Guy, OBG, other British guys, other members of the group. Me, hey guys, it's 2 o'clock. We are officially closed. Time to head to the exit. OBG, can we take some photos in the photo booth first? Me, okay, fine. I let them take their photos and I do a couple of tasks during this time. Our photo booth is slow, so it takes them a couple of minutes to take all the photos. As this is going on, the two guys are still playing ping pong. I finish the brief tasks I was doing and see that the group has finished taking their photos, and PPG and the other guy are still playing ping pong. It's 2:05 at this point. Me, alright y'all, we are officially closed. PPG, just 2 more points. Me, no, 1 more point. I let them do a game point, reminding them this is the last point of the night. The guy PPG was playing gets the point. Me, alright, we are closed, time to head out. PPG, 2 more minutes. Me, I already gave you 5 minutes. PPG, come on, just 2 more points. Me, I already gave you a game point. PPG, come on mate, just 2 minutes. Me, I already gave you 5 minutes, we are closed. He continues to plead his case. I continue to deny him. The group he's with are keeping out of it, but they're basically ready to leave. PPG, how will you be able to sleep tonight knowing you kept a game from finishing? Me, I'll sleep like a baby. PPG, yeah, you look like a baby. At this point, I'm pretty much done with this guy. I act like I didn't hear him and simply take the paddles and ball away. The group eventually leaves. OBG, sorry about him, he's from a different country. Me, It's alright, it's just time to go. Have a good night. I do legitimately wish them a good night before locking the door. And that's pretty much the story. Might not be much, but both me and the bartender I was working were both annoyed at this guy. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.